sisters and brothers asked me to say a couple of words to you today. And the good news is that because Father Jerry knew my father so well, I don't feel as a eulogist that I have to give any more color to my father. He knew him so well that you know, he did an excellent job there in the homily. And publicly, from the family side, I want to make sure that we all say a deep and public thank you to Sue for all that she has done for us over the last 26, 27 years. It is the truth that had Sue not come along, he would not have made 1990, let alone almost 90. That wasn't going to be in the cards. And the only person who was poor at assessing risk than my father seems to be Sue. Seemingly, you know, who would choose to bury a widow with 9 children? Oh, good Lord. I will not sign up for that deal, ever. So thank you to Sue. So I want to tell a little story about how we all got here today, because it involves life, and my father's particular life. And how we're all here today, it's St. Mary's Star of the Sea, actually starts in 1960, when my father gets introduced to a gentleman in Buffalo, New York, who is an agent who sells life insurance policies for Aetna under his own agency. And that gentleman at the time had an envious book of business. He underwrote all of the insurance for the Buffalo diocesan school system. How'd you like to have that book of business in 1960, right? So no wonder he had the money to vacation at Longboat Key, Florida. So as time went on, that gentleman introduced my mom and dad to Longboat Key sometime around 1965 or 66. And then in subsequent years, my parents came down, and then they rented a vacation house through recommendation of the same gentleman in 1972. And then that led to a gentleman named Jack Shire making an offer to my father about a new building at Seagate, and my father talks to his brother John, and then the next thing you know, we have 7D at Seagate, and I am the only Jewish Irish Catholic boy in Buffalo, New York, because where are you from, Joe? Oh, I'm from Buffalo, but I vacation twice a week, 2 weeks every year in Florida. And that was me, and us, and we had the great vision as things go on. This same friend, on November 6th, 1979, saves my father's life and the lives of a lot of us. He takes my father to lunch and he says, "Jim, you're in danger of losing everything that you have in life, everything that you've worked so hard to build." And the next day, my father goes to his first AA meeting. That gentleman is Henry J. Hank O'Keefe. Hank O'Keefe is why we're all here today, as well as my father. So I have to tell you this little story. So my father, being who he is, decides that his first AA meeting he's ever going to go to, he makes the phone call and he decides to go to this meeting down in the First Ward section of Buffalo, down by Republic Steel. Why? Because nobody will know him there. Right? It'll be a steelworkers meeting. He'll go. Nobody will know him. He shows up for his first meeting, and he's sitting there, and of course, does he dress for the occasion? No. He shows up like he normally dressed, you know, wearing his Ellermere suits and all that sort of stuff. And he sits in the first row, really looking out of place, I might add. And somebody taps him on the shoulder. He turns around, and it's another one of his insurance agents. Says, "Hello, Jim." Dad had no idea it was even in the program. The gentleman was named Marty Green. And so that started this cavalcade. And it literally saved my father's life. I want to tell, I'm going to say it's a gift. And I'm going to describe this. For 4 years, I had a special gift in that my dad would fly to Annapolis, Maryland, where I live, where my wife Courtney and I live, and our children. And then I would get to drive my father to Buffalo, New York, which is a 7-hour car ride. So think about that for a second. It's me alone in a car with my father for 7 hours. But it was my car, and I was driving. So in that 7 hours up, 7 hours back, 14 hours, do the math, for those trips. I got to ask questions with the knowledge to find out, what the truth was of certain things, family. It was a marvelous gift. And I have to tell you, I'll tell you this little line, or just to let you understand. With Dad's passing, I have the longest continuous sobriety in our family pool now. I have 24 years, 1 month, and a couple of days. And so, on this car ride, this was going to be my big amend. My father and I had had a rough and turbulent childhood together. Joni Baggett's laughing in the back, and she should. She spent a couple of hours one day at 70 on the logboat trying to convince my father not to kill me. She was successful. And so I'm going to make my big amend to my father, because I was wrong on some certain things. And so we're on this car ride, and Mary is stunned. And I got the gift of my father's humility. It's an unused resource. And so I get to the point where I say, Dad, listen, I want to make an amends. I wasn't, I wasn't really good to you in those years, and I really should have treated you more like a friend. Now, Father, I'm going to have to say a word here that you can't say. And my father turned to me and said, I never wanted to be your GB friend. I was your father, for Christ's sakes. So went that soft, tender Hallmark moment. That was out the window. But he was right. That's exactly what he was, and then what he is. And I was reminded of something. So think about it, and a lot of you in the audience have gone through this progression. But the last conversation that my daughters Layton and Lucy had were with my father via FaceTime. So he's born September 10th, 1923, at the advent of public radio, and his last conversation with his granddaughters is via FaceTime. How amazing is that? And his last words to his grandchildren, Layton and Lucy, and it's actually, he had done this before. There's a YouTube video out there that Molly taped. And he turns and he looks in the camera, on his way, like this, and he goes, choose your friends. It's the only choice you got in life. That's what he says. And I thought about this, and you think about why we're all here. He's remarkably good at choosing his friends. He was remarkably good at it. Maybe the best I've ever seen. Clearly the best I've ever seen, really, in reflection. And so he had his choice of friends, and that's his words of wisdom to the next generation. And so we're here because he made a choice on November 7th, 1979. And that means that he died the way friends of Bill want to die, with 33 years, 5 months, and 12 days of sobriety. And he got to check out at 8:20 in the morning and attempt to convince my mother to make him breakfast. I'm not sure she complied. But, and so that's just what I wanted to leave you with today. We've made, obviously we lost our brother Jim to this disease. My father lost, there's been many in our gene pool who we've lost to this disease over time. And the donations go to a wonderful facility in Havre de Grace, Maryland, called Father Martin Ashley, which is where our brother Jim attempted to get some sobriety. in the remarkable world that we live in today with all the social media. Somebody generously made the first donation yesterday morning at 10 o'clock in the morning. And that, I think, among all the things, the laughter, the fun, choosing your friends, and choosing wisely as we go forward, I think that's the legacy that my father would want us all to carry on.